Welcome to another episode of the Einstein Retirement Daily, where we cover topics, news items, things that we think are going to be important to those of you who are gearing up for or are already in retirement. In today's episode, we're going to talk about delaying Social Security at age 70. When should you do it? Why should you do it? What's the biggest reason that you should consider delaying to 70? And so we're going to talk about the scenario that would apply in a scenario where I say that it would become a no-brainer. Okay. All right. As you listen to today's podcast, if you hear something that causes you to want to take some action or make changes or do something different in your specific circumstance, please confer. We insist that you confer with the appropriate tax, legal, or investment professional prior to making any changes. Okay. Here's what we're going to talk about. You know, when people are thinking about delaying Social Security, delaying till age 70, one of the most common things that will come up is, well, don't I have to live to a certain age? Don't I have to, live past 87 or 90 or what's my break even? Okay. I mean, maybe I'll delay, but I got to hit my break even, right? I have to think I'm going to live long enough to get to that. And then people will obviously bring up things like, well, what if I take my Social Security and invest those dollars? I'm laughing because the amount of times I actually see people do that is pretty low. But, hypothetically, it's a good idea, right? You take your Social Security dollars, you invest them, you make interest or earn off of those dollars, and then down the road you can do it. Well, okay, so actually break evens, longevity, reinvesting, none of that has anything to do with the situation that causes me to say that delaying Social Security is a no-brainer. So what would cause me to say, yeah, in your particular circumstance, you should delay Social Security to age 70 and it's a no-brainer? Well, that circumstance has to do with the way Social Security is taxed. Social Security, if you're not familiar with how it's taxed, and you are mathematically inclined, I'd encourage you to make yourself familiar with Publication 915. Publication 915 will detail out everything that you could possibly want to know about how you'll pay taxes on your Social Security benefits. Secondarily to that, it will have worksheets in it that will give you the step-by-step 19-step process that you can use to determine how much tax you'll owe on your Social Security benefits. Now, the big takeaway when it comes to Social Security is that Social Security has, in terms of how it's taxed, has two primary features. Number one, the way that Social Security becomes taxable is from a number known as provisional income. And so that's going to be all the sources of income you have outside of Social Security, plus any municipal bond interest income, plus 50% of the Social Security benefits that you're receiving are going to count towards this provisional income number. Once you know your provisional income number, if that number is a very large number and the majority of it is not Social Security, okay, so that's key. If the majority of your provisional income number is not Social Security, then you're probably at risk for being taxed on up to 85% of your benefits. So that's key number one. You're only taxed on 85% of Social Security. So from that perspective, another way to say it would be is you can't be taxed on 15% of your benefits. So it's 15% of the dollars. So what's better, a very large Social Security benefit or a very small Social Security benefit from that perspective? Well, a large one, because 15% of a larger number means you have more tax-free income. Okay, so remember that. The larger my Social Security benefit check, the more tax-free, guaranteed by how it's structured, tax-free income I'm going to have. So, because up to 15% of your benefit is non-taxable. Now, the second component of this is once those benefits are taxable, the way that the actual amount of taxable income comes in has to do with your other sources of income. It is possible to have tax exposure on your Social Security and still pay no taxes on your Social Security benefits. How would you pull that off? Well, if you are in a situation where you get to retirement, but you don't file for Social Security, let's say you're going to wait 5 years. Let's say you retire at 65. You're going to not collect Social Security at 65, go on Medicare, but you're going to fund your retirement income, say from some pension dollars or 401k dollars or other investment accounts that you have. Okay, great. That's wonderful. So you have these early years where you're collecting benefits, or excuse me, you're collecting income, but not Social Security. From that point until you file down the road, let's say you maximize your benefit at 70, it's time to get, we'll say, aggressive in your tax optimization strategies. So things like Roth conversions come into play. Things like realizing capital gains, reinvesting to get different types of income. Okay, maybe you need to focus on long-term capital gains with qualified dividends. Maybe you need to focus on municipal bond interest income. Municipal bond interest income, while it does participate in the number that is used to determine how much of your Social Security benefit is taxable, it doesn't actually participate in the tax exposure because municipal bond interest income, assuming you buy the right kinds of municipal bonds, would not be taxed at the federal level. So these are some of those little things to consider. But the key is if you can do things today or early on in retirement that will put you in a position that once Social Security is filed, you can increase that 15% of tax-free income from Social Security maybe to 20%, maybe to 30%, maybe to 50%. But you can increase the amount of tax-free money from Social Security. That's the goal. So the time that it's a no-brainer is the scenario where retirement, doing, say, big Roth conversions, optimizing your taxes so that you pay 0% in taxes when you file for Social Security, that's when it's a no-brainer. If you can get your situation, or maybe you pay some tax, but you pay 0% on Social Security, if you can optimize your plan such that when you file for Social Security benefits, say at age 70, you're paying a 0% tax rate, that's when I would say probably a no-brainer. The thing that gets lost, I would say, if you talk to a CPA or an accountant or somebody who files tax returns for folks, the most common I'm struggling for the right word because I want to be nice. Maybe misconception or, accidental bad advice that is given is, well, you're going to pay less in taxes in the future, so don't pay more now. Except two things. Number one, we're probably in a situation right now, politically, economically, as our country, where we should expect taxes to go up in the future. Maybe not your personal income to increase taxes, but just the tax brackets themselves. That's number one. So that's a pretty high risk. The second risk at play is that if you don't optimize and put yourself in a position to pay lower taxes in the future, it's not guaranteed that you're going to pay lower taxes in the future. Between required minimum distributions, appreciation on assets and growth in those brokerage accounts, if you have real estate, inflation, okay, pushing your rental income up, if you have rental properties, all of these things are going to factor in, and you shouldn't necessarily assume that your taxes are going to go down in the future. The other thing that's missed oftentimes is that doubling effect on your tax exposure. Social Security has this corridor that I call it the tax torpedo corridor, where when you are over 32,000 as a married couple or 25,000 as a single person of that provisional income number, if you're over those limits, you start paying taxes on Social Security. But every additional dollar that you have of income adds an additional dollar of Social Security. So that's that tax torpedo, it's that doubling corridor, the tax torpedo corridor. If you're in that corridor, then any extra income that you generate is you might be in the 10% tax bracket, let's say, but it sort of feels like a 20. Or you might be in the 12, but it feels like a 24. Or you might be in the 22 and it feels like a 44. Okay, just on those dollars that are in there. So is that worth saving money on? Yeah. Is it worth saving money on Social Security to get it to where you could have more tax-free income from Social Security guaranteed for the rest of your life? Probably. Okay, so maybe that's the window that's missed. That's the, sort of mental shift that's often missed. When we run analyses and reports for folks, and we're looking at the difference between doing something like a Roth conversion versus not doing it, and the tax savings over time, especially how that affects those Social Security benefits, it's a very big deal. Okay, so let me restate very quickly. The time that delaying Social Security to 70 is a no-brainer is if you can do things early on in retirement that optimizes your taxes so that when you file those Social Security benefits at age 70, you are paying 0% taxes on those dollars. Okay, I hope you found today's podcast to be helpful. If you need to do a deeper dive on that issue, you don't know exactly how to make that happen for you, I would encourage you to attend one of our live workshops. We do an hour-long workshop on Social Security. We dive a little bit more in depth on these details and topics. And we also have some offers about analyses reports that we can do in those workshops. So we're happy to see you there and engage with you in that way. All right, we'll see you next time.